Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer for Geek Vibes Nation. I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Attic new release roundup. If you're new here, first of all, welcome. What we do here is we go back and forth. We talk about the latest home video releases, some good, some bad, some really terrible, a little bit of everything in between. And I'm going to start this party off with, I'm going to be talking about some Warner Archive titles for a little while now. And I'm really excited because these are like, all of these Warner Archive titles I've been really excited for. The Damned Don't Cry is the first one I'm going to talk about. And we do get a nice commentary track. We get some featurettes, which is really nice. This is, in my opinion, one of Joan Crawford's best film noirs. I would even say it's up there as one of her best films, period. I think this is only second to maybe like Mildred Pierce, which is like legit a masterpiece. This movie is very loosely based on a real life gangster's girlfriend, which they would call a ma, which is weird, but that's just the old-timey vernacular. What's kind of fascinating about this movie is whether intentionally or not, it sort of weirdly mirrors Crawford's real life. And by that, I mean like her and the character kind of start from these humble beginnings and really sort of climb the ladder. There's like even a point where they change her name, her character's name, to something else, which Crawford famously, they changed her name to from something Lesor. I'm blanking on the first name, but they changed it to Joan Crawford. So I like how that sort of also mirrored like in the movie. But everything about this is great. The direction is spot on. The cinematography is like next level good. Joan Crawford, of course, is a force of nature.
You enjoy making a person look like 2 cents, don't you? Well, get this straight. I don't like being made to look like 2 cents. Especially by somebody who was small change himself not so long ago.
What do you mean by that?
I mean Joe Cavaney, who changed his name to George Kesselman. You and your Etruscan flower pots. You and your sensitive nose. Since when did Joe Cavaney know anything about perfume? Since you were a loud-mouthed hoodlum hijacking beer trucks in Jersey, running rum from Cuba, plugging guys for a $10 bill? I can find out things, too.
She kind of dominates every scene that she's in. This is sort of a weird love triangle in this gangster film, and I think she has a lot of great chemistry with her leading men, especially Stephen Kraken, probably butchering that name, I'm sorry. Film buffs will probably remember him from White Heat, which if you haven't seen, do so right away. The Damned Don't Cry, it's a really good film. It's one of those that it's maybe not like as like tense or maybe as dramatically layered as something like Mildred Pierce. I will say that like the ending kind of has this cool little like double twist, which I thought that was really fun, and it kind of keeps you guessing till the actual like finale of the film. So as for how this looks, it looks great. Again, I sound like a broken record, but Warner Archive never drops the ball when it comes to their releases. They all look really spectacular. I loved that this had a commentary track that was ported over. The featurette on Joan Crawford. I mean, all of it is really great. You get a radio broadcast that like ties into this as well. So really, really amazing. The Damned Don't Cry, highly recommended. If you're a Joan Crawford fan, what are you doing? Get it right now. So I don't know how much you're familiar with or our audience is familiar with women in prison movies. But if you're looking for what was maybe the first or among the first to sort of start that trend, Caged, and you had to yell it because of the explanation.
Yeah.
But we do get some featurettes and a radio broadcast, so that's cool. But yeah, it's really interesting because this is a movie from, was it 1950? But the women in prison as sort of an exploitation genre didn't really surge until like maybe the late 60s, but definitely the 70s and the 80s. But yeah, this could be considered one of the first, if not the first, sort of blueprint for these films. And what's interesting is they have all the hallmarks of women in prison films, but one of the big things is this was a very much product of its time. So, while you do have some violence, it's very tame. And, one of the big draws about later women in prison films is, the nudity, the sex. Of course, you don't get any of this here. So it's interesting to see like what a Hayes era sort of stripped back version of a women in prison film is. And I would say that this is maybe one of my favorite women in prison films of all time. I think the direction is great. The dialogue crackles. The story is really engaging. I think it's slightly sensationalized, but it feels very authentic of like what women had to go through. The film is overall very sympathetic with these prisoners, even though they are like paying their debt to society. They still see them as people and they're being mistreated, and that's the crux of this film.
I am interested in seeing that we give every inmate a chance for readjustment, to become a worthwhile human being.
I wish we could drag the public in here to see the inmates decaying.
But even sympathetic officers are helpless against the system. For here the underworld conducts its training school, where new recruits are taught every vice imaginable. Here corrupt matrons exact tribute from inmates who can pay, and wreak brutality on those who can't. Here women without men live only for the moment of freedom, while the bars of their cage seem to close in on them in a mad, swirling pattern of terror.
So, I think it probably did a lot to sort of draw attention to like what's going on with these women. And yeah, it is slightly on the exploitation side. It is entertainment first and foremost, but I think it's entertainment first, but I think it has some interesting provocative things to say about the prison system, especially for the time. People really didn't know what, unless you actually went to prison, what it was actually like on the inside. Obviously, this is probably a very sanitized version of like what it was like in a 50s prison, but yeah, it's great. Again, looks great, looks amazing. I've seen this movie a dozen times, and this, of course, blows any print that I've seen out of the water. Caged, really great. If you are a fan of women in prison movies, this is the Rosetta Stone. Like, y'all need to be checking this out. So, yeah, both excellent titles.
Yeah, I'm about halfway through The Damn Don't Cry, so I'll finish that after our recording. But I did get to watch Caged, which I actually watched after another women in prison film that I recently reviewed from Kino Classics, Prison Girls in 3D, which is just basically a softcore porn, just with like the vaguest trappings of a plot. And so I covered that on a different video, which apparently our channel has a lot of perverts, because it's one of the better performing videos on our channel right now. Because you talk about naked women and they come flying. But I love Cage. Yeah.
But
more than that one.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, it's definitely interesting to watch this than watch like when they were really getting into sort of the heyday of women in prison films. And I mean, what did you think of Cage though? I mean, as far as like in that genre.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. I would take it any day of the week over anything else. But like it's a really good movie just on its own, because it's not like, I don't even think it's that exploitative. But what I like, you were talking about how it's sympathetic towards the prisoners. I like that most of the women are in there, and they kind of spell this out, that they're in there because of men and being screwed over by men. So it's like some of them got themselves there, but usually it's just living in a society of men that has like caused them to like be like a lookout, or like be put in a position where they got themselves in trouble, probably because of some fuckery from men. So I like that it didn't like completely let them off the hook, but there is kind of like a backdrop of just like men are like responsible for these women's like poor lives. And
it's so good. And there's another women in prison film that I think is like one of my favorite. It's called Bear Behind Bars. I just wanted to give that a quick shout out. It has a very lewd scene with a pineapple.
Whoa.
By this psychotic nurse who is like she's just like, her character is just next level crazy. And I love it. I usually don't like, I mean, women in prison films are fine. They're just very like formulaic. But yeah, Bear Behind Bars is
If I want something weird happening with a pineapple, I'm gonna stick with Little Nicky and its use as a torture item. So moving on to my first title. This is a new one from Synapse Films, and this is the action movie McBain with Christopher Walken, which whenever it was announced, I was like, this is not a real movie. But it is.
Like the Simpsons McBain, right?
Yes, that's what I thought. I was like, I thought it was just like a Simpsons joke that there was a action movie like hero called McBain. Nope. There is this movie that apparently came out like right before the Simpsons episode, but there's not many special features on here, but there's a commentary track where they're talking to the director. And early on, the interviewer who's like with the director asks him about the Simpson thing, and you can kind of tell that it bothers him a little bit. He was just like, no, we came out beforehand. Like, he doesn't really have a great sense of humor about it, but he was just like, it's just, but I was just like, you got to know that's the more famous McBain.
Yeah.
But this film, it's fine. It's not great. If you're looking for just kind of a mindless action movie, it does the trick. If it didn't have Christopher Walken in it, I probably wouldn't care that much. I'd probably still check it out just to see what an actual McBain movie is. But this is a very simple film. Christopher Walken, at the beginning of the movie, he's like a prisoner of war in the Philippines. I'm kind of getting confused because the director said that they filmed in one place that made it standing in for a different place. So it's either Philippines or Taiwan, one of those. And he gets rescued by a kind of like a freedom fighter from the area at that point, and he kind of like basically like, hey, pledges his life to him, like, hey, if you ever need anything, like, come find me, and I'll be you got my back, I got your back. And it's 20 years later, this guy ends up getting killed by the government for like trying to like overthrow it. And his widow comes to find McBain to basically cash in on this debt. So it's basically him and his like group of like soldier friends go into I think it's Colombia, and they're like basically trying to like shut down this like huge drug empire with cartels and everything. So it's like a fighting against like evil corruption with like explosions and all that type of stuff. It's fine. It's not revolutionizing the genre. The cast members kind of elevate it. Like I said, Christopher Walken. There's also Michael Ironside, who I always enjoy as like a tough, like a heavy. The rest of the cast, I didn't recognize anyone as like particularly like A-list, but I'm sure there's a lot of like action like favorites around here. But the story, not revolutionary. The action, it's well done. Like there's some good practical effects, some good squib work of people getting mowed down by guns.
Charlie 704, put the plane down. Do you read me? Do you read me? Charlie 704, put the plane down.
The dialogue isn't too cringy, which is good. It's not overly long. It's an hour and 44 minutes, so they don't stretch it out too much. And yeah, it's just like this was made in 91. It was kind of coming off that like 80s action boom. It's still doing well, but it's not like standing out in the genre. But I mean, I'm glad I watched it, and there's not like a lot of unnecessary elements like put into this. It's a pretty streamlined picture. So I appreciate that. This isn't noted like anywhere on the packaging or on the website from what I can find as being from a new restoration, but it looks really good. So I believe it is, but I know they did some audio restoration work, because this includes the original 2.0 theatrical stereo track, as well as a newly remixed 5.1 surround track. Both of them sound really good, but I'm glad that they give both options, so you can have either the original audio or a remix surround sound if you want like full channel immersion. Other than the commentary track, which I talked about, there's only a trailer, so this isn't the most stacked Synapse Films release, but if you are curious, it is a solid release audiovisual wise, and the commentary track, even though the director isn't the most forthcoming about Simpsons related lore. He gives a good information otherwise about shooting and like working with Christopher Walken and all that kind of stuff. So Synapse Films did a good release with McBain. I wish it was an animated Simpsons McBain.
Yeah. Did you know that apparently you can string all the McBain clips together to make one like coherent story?
No idea. That's great.
I mean, someone's had to have done that by now, but anyways, I'll look for it. If I can find a clip of that, I'll link in the description. So not my final title, but my final Warner Archive title, just not scare you, like, okay, after this I'm done. Whoa. Angel Face. And this is one of those movies that in film noir, the film noir, I guess is technically not a genre, but movement. But I think that this one is overlooked. It's so amazing. Gene Simmons, not the Kiss Gene Simmons, just so you know, and Robert Mitchum in this Howard Hughes produced movie. Otto Preminger directed. It's interesting because Eddie Muller goes into this. Well, here's the back, and we do get a really rare, because he doesn't do this a lot, but Eddie Muller did do a commentary track, and I interviewed him recently for the second time. He's such a nice person, just amazing. I'll link that in the other link section where you can check that out. But he goes into more detail about how absolutely insane the making of this movie was. Like, Howard Hughes basically told Otto Preminger to torture Gene Simmons to make her life a living hell on set. And it's been widely reported and substantiated that Robert Mitchum actually slapped Otto Preminger and like really stood up for Gene. And Muller talks pretty extensively about in his early days of doing like noir programming, they had Gene Simmons on to screen the movie, and she got so stressed out from like she wouldn't watch the movie when it was screening because, you know, of all these horrible things. But, you know, that's awful. But I will say the movie is fantastic. It's one of those it's such a eerie and completely just devastating film noir. I think that's the only way you can kind of describe this. Not only do you have these amazing performances from Gene Simmons, from Robert Mitchum, but the tone is just so oppressive and unrelenting. The fact that they kind of had to like talk the Hays Code into kind of breaking one of their rules for the finale, and I won't spoil it obviously, but like that should tell you how hard this movie rides. Visually, this movie is stunning. I will even say it's among the best looking film noirs. I think Gene Simmons' character Diane is such a compelling character, and I think the movie does an interesting job of kind of using the femme fatale trope to sort of subvert our expectations. And again, I don't. It's tricky reviewing these movies because I don't want to give like any like plot points or spoilers away. I mean, you just need to experience this film. It's full of great twists and turns. Again, it's beautifully shot. The commentary track was just phenomenal. I wish he would do more commentary tracks, but he's busy writing books and being amazing, so I get it. But it's stellar. This looks great. Again, Warner Archive really takes a lot of care and time into their releases. It's a black and white film. Everything looks crisp and clean. The black and white contrast is really nice. This is such a visually sumptuous film. So I think when you have that new restoration, you really kind of appreciate just how meticulous this was shot. It's fantastic. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Robert Mitchum, and I caught that a couple days ago, and I really enjoyed it. And the ending is a knockout, so I'm glad that they were able to get that passed. But it's a very good movie, so I recommend it as well. My next title is from Kit Parker Films and the Cine Museum, and this is I want to get this right. Stooge-O-Rama, The Men Behind the Mayhem, and Even More Mayhem, which I'll kind of dig into what this exactly is. This is for the special features nuts. This is like, it's basically a glorified bit of like special features all in one packaging, but there is like a core reason to own this. So the Men Behind the Mayhem, which is on the first disc, it's a documentary about the Three Stooges, that kind of like which apparently there was actually like 6 Stooges. I only knew about like 4 of them. I knew Shemp was an extra one, but I didn't know about the other 2 because I wasn't that deep into my Three Stooges lore. But so I learned a lot about them and just like their career and stuff. It's a little bit over an hour long, and I'll talk about the video quality here in a little bit, but just the film itself, it's a really good documentary. Like it kind of gives you the bare bones of like their whole career. You get interviews from some of their family members, some historians, all that jazz, and it kind of gives you a good like baseline for the Three Stooges if you're just like looking to learn about them. It's a very good documentary. The other 2 discs are just chock full special features. Like this says over 8 hours of special features. I would say I was starting my review or my written review earlier, and I was like trying to list like the name of every special feature, and I'm pretty sure it took me like an hour just to list like every single name of special features, because there's like so many subsets of videos and stuff from like there's a section just for like audio like programs, like audio interviews that they've given like on different radio stations. There's different home movies that they have. There's talk shows that they've been on that you can get like episodes of them, different short films, trailers for movies that they were in. This is just filled to the brim with special features of just all kinds. And like when I say it's like about 8 hours of special features, like a lot of these things do only run a like few minutes long, like maybe like 2 to 3 to 10 minutes long. There's some like 30-minute stuff, but that gives you a sense of how much there is on here, just because like some of them are so short, it still is 8 hours of materials. I'm just like, Jesus, there's so much to go through in this set. And so if you're a special features nut, you're going to love like all the rarities, because they like contacted so many like family members and like fans who kind of collect this vintage stuff, and they got all this stuff into this one package. And while not all of it is in like the most pristine material, because like a random talk show from like the 50s, you're not going to have the best elements still available, but it still looks really good. It's really cool to like see some of that stuff. So 2 disc worth of like full special features plus that documentary. From what I can from what is like told on like the website and stuff, most of this material was not made for high definition, and so this has been like upscaled from like the standard definition for a high definition transfer, for at least for the documentary specifically. I've seen a lot of upscales that stuff they're trying to like pass off as HD. This is one of the better ones I've ever seen. It looks really good in high definition. I was surprised that this comes from a standard definition source, and it hasn't been like newly remastered, because it looks like from like original materials, because it looks really nice. It's a very, very good upscale. There's a little bit of softness just that I would expect from like an upscale like that, but you don't really get a lot of damage or anything like that. It's a really good presentation for this. And it does have a LPCM 2.0 lossless sound, which comes through very nice. It's a documentary, so it's not super dynamic, but everything is stable. And all the other special features, it is as good as the source will allow. If it's like a vintage radio program, you're going to hear some crackles and everything, but the material is all in like viewable, listenable states. It all is pretty solid, some surprisingly so. Like some of the family footage from like the 40s, I was like, oh, this is way clearer, like from like just like family shot footage than I would expect. So if you're a fan of the Three Stooges, and knowing that you're not getting specifically classic Three Stooges shorts, but you're getting more like, you are getting like some short films that like the Stooges may have performed in, like as a solo basis, or like I said, interviews, all that stuff. If you're into that kind of thing, this is a dream release. It's very cool, and I highly recommend it. Even for the documentary alone, but like the hours and hours of special features, you'll go nuts. So this is a good release for any Three Stooges fans. Stooge-O-Rama, I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Yeah. Is there any like really good, like, okay, for somebody like myself that's sort of new to like Stooges, has like Classic Flicks or anybody like put out some really good like restorations of the shorts as like a supplemental kind of?
I don't know, because that's always been kind of like one of my dream releases. Like whenever they started putting out the Little Rascals stuff, I was like, oh, awesome, this is amazing. I'm not sure if there's been like an extensive Three Stooges release. I don't have it in my collection if they do, but there's so many like releases that have come out before I started like trying to get like some of these like classic shorts that they may have been released. It's not on my radar. So I hope they do kind of more of like a comprehensive thing like Classic Flicks did for Little Rascals, but I'm not sure right now.
Okay. Yeah, I did, like, while you were reviewing, I checked really quick, and I know Mill Creek did like some compilations, but but yeah,
no shade to Mill Creek, sorry.
Right. Well, maybe a little, like, listen, we're hard on them because we think they can do better. Like, we know that they can do good work. That's all. So my next 2 titles that I'm going to be talking about are like, weirdly, did not plan this, but weirdly they are both Cold War thrillers. Both very different, but both just kind of really wonderfully weird. So my first one is probably like the not as well-known one. And these are both from Kino Studio Classics, and that is The Package. Here's the back, and I don't think this has reversible art, but yeah, nope. So yeah, this one, it's really interesting because the whole like Tommy Lee Jones kind of being like next level in gosh, what was it, Batman Forever?
Yes.
Yeah. This is a really early, well, not really early, but kind of early film with Tommy Lee Jones, and I have to say he's just a stone cold weirdo in this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know, like, it's his character is a weirdo, and he is very over the top at times, and it kind of gave me, like, not quite as over the top as he was as Two-Face, but it was giving me shades of that. I just wanted to talk about that off the top. But anyways, yeah, Gene Hackman is great in this. The plot is actually really smart, and I think it has some really good twists and turns. There are some really nice set pieces. But I think like the core of this is when Hackman and Tommy Lee Jones gets to be on the screen together, and it's a shame because they don't have a lot of actual scenes together, even though Tommy Lee Jones's character is like integral to the plot. But seeing these two together, I'm like, oh my gosh, I never really knew I needed this pairing in my life.
Who are you working for? Johnny, that information is privileged and confidential. I can tell you it pays very well. Who pays you? Everybody pays me. I'm a public servant.
You're a walking zero, Tom. You're a walking fucking zero, Tom!
Pam Grier's in it. Amazing. Love her. Yeah, I mean, you can see where, you know, this is a director of The Fugitive, because this has this very much like this man on the run, you know, solving this mystery, like getting your like friends to kind of help you piece together this mystery. And again, I love this like cheesy ticking clock with the, you know, this historic peace summit, and it's so like of its time and so kind of cheesy, but the movie takes itself very seriously, and I love it, especially when it just gets to be weird and like goofy as fuck. So the package, I thought it was fun. I had a really good time. I honestly can see this on a lazy weekend and, you know, have a good time. I think like, especially if you sort of like cheesy 80s 90s action movies, the action isn't incredible, but it's fun. And again, I mean, you get Gene Hackman, so
yeah,
that's all you need.
Yeah, I thought this one was pretty solid. I put together what the next title you're going to be talking about is, and I like that one a little bit more than this one, but I think this one is perfectly solid. Like it feels like a dad movie. Like it just like you said, lazy weekend, like just like, oh, this is good. Like it's just
yeah. But what did you think of Tommy Lee Jones in this though? I mean, isn't he kind of like a weirdo in this?
Yeah, I love it because he's usually more like a more of a serious persona. Yeah. So I like when he gets to let loose a little bit. It's certainly a good time. He was one of the standouts for me. And Hackman's always solid, but he was more kind of like dependably solid.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's funny because like stuff has come out about Tommy Lee Jones being kind of like grumpy, not being the nicest person allegedly, but like it's nice, like you said, it's nice to kind of see when, you know, you can get a little weird, get a little wild with your role. So
yeah, I still love him. He's great. My next title, it is from Fun City Editions in partnership with NBD, and this is the release of the 90s indie underground hit Party Girl, Parker Posey, which I actually had just watched a few months ago for the first time on Peacock. It is still on there if you want to sample it, but I do have to warn you, I did not realize how big of an upgrade it would be, because that presentation it's an older master and it's in the wrong aspect ratio, so this was like a very welcome upgrade that I got to see just a few months later. So this came out around that time a few months ago with a slipcover, which I believe featured this cover artwork. This is the standard edition that they just put out. So if you are a big slipcover fan, you can probably track that down somewhere, but just know that there is a standard edition out there. So try to find your preference. So this comes with a booklet as well, and it has like some essays and behind the scenes photos. So it's some fun stuff in here. I always love a good booklet. And Fun City Editions, they have a partnership with Vinegar Syndrome usually, but this seems to be the first one that they put out with MVD, and then they're starting to put some of their other Vinegar Syndrome titles out in like kind of a standard version through MVD Entertainment, which I'll be covering some of those in the future as well. So I'm excited about that because I don't always get to check out all the Vinegar Syndrome releases. But I really liked revisiting this. The movie itself, I do have some issues with it, but I think overall it is a very entertaining movie. It is just Parker Posey plays the titular party girl who she kind of living that like New York nightlife scene. She kind of like doesn't have a care in the world. She's just like living to party until one day she gets thrown into jail for reasons I won't get into, but whenever she gets out, she kind of has like kind of a wake up call where she realizes she has to start kind of thinking about her future and everything. And she attempts to get a job at a library where her godmother works, and starts to try to like work towards being a librarian. But like she's kind of a screw up. She's kind of she's living this lifestyle where no one really takes things seriously. But then she also you can also tell there's this part of her inside of her where she does want more for herself. So you kind of see that it's kind of a coming of age narrative where she's accustomed to this kind of party lifestyle. She wants to grow up, and then there's also kind of like a romantic subplot as well with this like food vendor, like New York food vendor, who he's like this hunky dude who's he's from Eastern Europe. I can't remember exactly which country. It's a really solid comedy. There's some dated stuff in there, but which is some like my little nitpicks. But overall, it's like a 90s like time capsule. It really defines the era really well. There's some really great music. I love Parker Posey's performance. There's a kind of an earlier performance from Guillermo Diaz before he was like on Scandal or Half Baked or anything like Chappelle's Show. There's a lot of other great performers in here as well, but it's just a really breezy movie. It's like 95 minutes long, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 95 minutes long. And it's just like, if you love the like independent scene of the 90s, which like had a very particular flavor, I think you'll really like this. And Parker Posey is also just like a particular like flavor for people. So if you love her, this is like one of her iconic roles.
Vogue magazine calls Parker Posey wickedly funny. She's got a personality like a neon exclamation point.
So yeah, you'll want this. This is pretty great. And she even shows up on some of the special features. She has, I want to get these right. She has a 24-minute interview. It's a newer interview with her as well. There's a 36-minute interview with the director, a 16-minute interview with the music supervisor, and an 18-minute interview with the co-writer and co-producer. And there's also an audio commentary from Jake Fogelnest, who like, he was on MTV a lot in the 90s around that time. And he also he has a lot of accolades, but I've heard of him on a lot of podcasts, and he has a lot of great insights into how this film kind of captures the 90s era of New York and stuff. So I really enjoyed listening to that. This new restoration, which I kind of hinted at, much better than the Peacock stream. It's from a 4K restoration of the original 16 millimeter original negative. So this is this was shot on 16 millimeters. So it's not like the most like crisp and like pinpoint like clear picture, but it is very refined. It looks very nice. It's not ragged in the least. I just want to have expectations because like 16 millimeter has like an inherently kind of like grittiness to it, but that's just film grain, and I love it. It's properly preserved. There's no digital artifacts or anything of that sort. The original soundtrack is preserved as well. So overall, if you're a 90s independent film fan, especially with Parker Posey in it. Party Girl is a really fun time and a great release from Fun City Editions.
Nice. I don't know if this is a fun fact, but a friend of mine cut her hair in when he was working as a stylist in New York.
Awesome.
So
hey, that's a connection. That's a connection.
A very, very tenuous but yeah. So no, that sounds awesome. That's one when I saw you put on the sheet, I was really excited to hear about, because I've been kind of waffling if I want to get that, but I love Parker Posey, so I figure that's probably enough incentive. But yeah, I'll just keep my cringe expectations maybe set first, maybe some certain things, as you were saying. But yeah, so you probably guessed this, but Gorky Park is my next title. Which, here's the back. You're right. This is the better movie out of the two. But I will say no reversible art. But yeah, I will say I was having a tough time. Like, I know clearly this is the better made film, but like the package was just so much more like fun. Like, it was more like goofy, I guess. But yeah, this does that. Like I said, this weirdness in it, but this also is a Cold War thriller. I didn't realize this, but it was based on a novel. Did not read it, obviously. But you know,
you didn't read it in preparation for this several minute long review,
right? God, I wish I had that time. But like, William Hurt is in this movie, and it's very intriguing. I love this setup. You find these three dead people, like they literally had their faces skinned off. Really wild. Just, you see it in the snow. It's actually, I mean, as jaded as I am, it is like legit kind of disturbing.
Yeah.
But you're like, haha, yes.
It's great.
It's a really engaging beginning, and then I love how the movie just turns the screws as far as like the intrigue, like what's actually happening. Like, there's a lot of really great misdirects. I love that there are strange touches, like was it Ian McDermott?
Yeah, Ian McDermott, yeah.
Who, you know, we all know is like Palpatine, but he is like what is his he's like a doctor, but he's like reconstructing the face.
Oh, yeah.
But he is just a straight up weirdo about it. He is so damn creepy, and it's not even subtext. Like, that's like the movie's like wanting you to know, like, he's not a well person, like like mentally or emotionally. So that's fun. I mean, again, you know, you have William Hurt doing an English accent. Why? I don't know. Just go with it. I love it. Yeah. No notes. Lee Marvin is great. When is Lee Marvin not great, though? It's an interesting movie. It is very well made. It is definitely better than The Package. Although I think if you want a weird, fun little double feature, I think both are really good. Like I said, clearly this is the better made movie. It's just better directed. The story's more interesting. I think that the most interesting stuff is about the machinations and the inner workings of the Soviet Union. So yeah, it's all really interesting. It was interesting timing seeing Richard Griffiths, who was in With Nail and I just got to talk to Richard E. Grant, who was awesome, and thankfully did not leave the interview when I told him how much I love Hudson Hawk.
Yeah.
You know, I would which I'm like, I had some settle me to do that because he doesn't like that role, but he was very sweet. And I mean, I don't know, but anyways, Yeah, great movie. I love that, we are getting some like Orion / MGM titles from Kino Studio Classics. They've been doing that for quite a while, but I just want to mention that I love seeing some of these more harder to find, or harder to find in like really good restorations. And this looks really great as well. Sounds great. I love that. I mean, it sucks we don't get a commentary track, but I do like that we get a director interview, and then we get some trailers, and trailers are fine, but
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm actually kind of surprised this didn't get a 4K release, but maybe down the road, maybe if it sells really well, y'all vote with your dollars. So if you want to see it, I don't know, hopefully it does well enough, but great title.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it was a Best Picture nominee. I could be wrong about that, but I think it was. One thing I do want to note for your past two titles, that Gorky Park and The Package, I'm 98% sure, if my memory is correct, these were previously released by Kino Classics several years ago. And while they may not have like new special features necessarily, I believe these are both titles that were originally released on like a Blu-ray 25 disc, which is a single layer disc. I believe these have been upgraded to Blu-ray 50, BD50. So there's a little bit like less like compression and stuff. So it might be the same transfer, but it might be like slightly better. I don't have those older discs to compare, but they did do something with this re-release. It's not just a straight re-release. They just try to give it more room to breathe, and they gave you the new slip covers as well. So I just wanted to, if people are like, I had that in my collection or something, is this different? Yeah. It is slightly different. I just wanted to let you know for anyone who's out there.
No, that's great. That's great to know. Do you know if those older ones were out of print by any chance? Or?
I believe they put them out of print, like in anticipation for this coming out, or maybe were out of print for like a few months, but now they're back with the upgrade. So
nice.
Well, if you order now, you're good.
Yeah, no, that's good to know. I mean, especially if like you want these titles and you see these like outrageous prices for the older ones. Now, Kino's got you covered. They did that with what was the Mario Bava vampire movie that they just re-released?
Oh, Planet of the Vampires. Yeah.
That was like notoriously expensive and out of print, and now they just did like a beautiful, what was that, last year? Mm-hmm. So
yeah, and I just talked about one that came out on the same day as those two called Juggernaut, which I really love. It was the same situation. They actually added a commentary for that one, so that's also something to note. But yeah, if they're going to do re-releases, I'd rather them just do a 4K upgrade. But if not, I'm glad that they're at least adding something of value for anyone who doesn't already have it. So that's pretty cool. My next title is a big one. I was very excited to check this one out because I've like heard about it for years, and I did not get the limited edition release that came out at the end of last year. This is from Ignite Films, and this is Invaders from Mars in 4K. Which is a really fun sci-fi tale that I really enjoyed. I'll show off the package really quick. Let's see, does it have no double-sided cover art, but it does have a very extensive booklet here with restoration notes from Scott McQueen from UCLA. Which, did you interview him, or am I making that up?
Nope, I did. Scott, really nice guy. Like, that makes me even more excited that he did the transfer, because like he does phenomenal work.
Yeah, and apparently this was one hell of a transfer, which is it's amazing that it looks so good enough to even get a 4K release. That's pretty awesome, and it really looks great. But before I get into the technical stuff, the film itself is very entertaining. It is, for those who haven't seen it, at the beginning of the movie, there's a young boy in bed who he's very interested in astronomy. His dad works for like a government program that's like dealing with that kind of work. And one night, whenever he's looking out like at space and everything, he sees a alien spaceship come down and like go into a field, and he tells his dad, and his dad's a little hesitant, but he eventually goes out to explore it. And then whenever he comes back, he's not quite acting right. And then you kind of start to realize that people who are going out like near this place they are returning in a similar fashion, and they are being taken over by this alien force. And so it's this young kid working against like a system where, like, if you say like, hey, I saw an alien spaceship, no one's going to believe you. So he's a child in a world of adults who don't really believe him until he meets the people who do believe him. So it's just kind of that narrative. What I particularly like about this movie is the direction. The direction is really fascinating because it isn't just like it has a semblance of like a normal movie, but there's a very specific style from the director, who started as a production designer, which I think is really cool. One is that this is based kind of from the perspective of a child. So a lot of the sets are just like slightly oversized, which you don't really notice it at first, but like the bars of a jail cell, they're just like a little bit bigger than like you would think. And you're just like, your mind kind of perceives it, but you're just like, oh, whoa, that's like messing with my mind. And just like a lot of this is just from his perspective.
Invaders from Mars, capturing humans at will for their own sinister purposes, turning them into diabolical instruments of destruction.
I think this was noted as like maybe the first like alien film to be shot in color. I think they like rushed this out to get in before War of the Worlds came out, which I think is a shady move, but it's pretty funny. But it has a very rich, vibrant palette, which is 4K really brings out. I'll talk about that more in a second. But this movie has like a brutal streak about it, which I really appreciate. This isn't really a spoiler, but like they mentioned that like a child died after the alien mind control device was like extracted from her. Like I was just like, whoa, that's dark from like this 50s film. But there's a lot of things like that throughout the movie that I'm like, ooh, this is like kind of like a dark fairy tale almost, which is pretty exciting. And I like how it ultimately ends up. I'll speak a little bit more when I'm talking about the special features, but like I can see a lot of people had issues with the ending and back in the day, but I think it's fun, and I like it. Kind of gives you like more of an ambiguous note to kind of interpret. But I really like this movie. I really enjoyed it, and the 4K presentation is great. Like I said, it was a very extensive 4K restoration led by Scott McQueen from the UCLA campus. And this looks great. Rich colors, Dolby Vision. Like it's basically flawless, as like flawless as this material can get. There's not any like dirt or debris or anything like that. It's just a very solid transfer that's like these colors have been like aligned again to like get their richness and everything. It's a very great transfer. And it has like a really nice array of special features as well. It comes with a 17-minute featurette on the director, which is led by the director's biographer and one of his granddaughters. You get to hear from both of them. You get 11-minute interview with the actor who played the little boy. He is now an old man, if you want to like see the passage of time. There's a 23-minute featurette on like an appreciation piece from like people like Joe Dante, John Landis, like people like legends who have like grew up on this film and like telling how that inspired them and like why people should love this film. And what I alluded to earlier was the ending of the film. At that time, especially European audiences really did not like this, and European distributors asked the filmmakers to make a new ending that people liked. So they like hastily brought some of the cast members together for like another like 10 minutes of material, which is awful. It really ruins the movie, but you can see that material and kind of like the alternate ending as well in this and like not integrated within the movie, but as like a separate supplement. It's fascinating to watch, but like I don't know why they asked them to do this, especially since whenever they brought the kid back, it was a year later, and there was like a noticeable growth in that year. So he looks a lot different, which is very funny. Besides that, there's like some trailers, and there's also a 7-minute piece from the Turner Classic Movies Festival from last year. So you got to get like the intro to that screening. So very stacked release, very good audio visual quality, really good movie. One of my favorites I watched this week. So Invaders from Mars, definitely check this one out.
Nice. Yeah, no, that looks awesome. I actually just pre-ordered it myself. So I love 50s science fiction movies. So like I'm already sold. So that's awesome. I can't wait. My next title, I believe you reviewed. It is Blind Willow Sleeping Woman. Did you review that, or was that somebody else?
I did not. I threw it out to our colleagues to review, but I did not review that one.
It's really good, but we're gonna get into that.
Nice.
So I think that like the best way to describe this is just whimsical. It is just this beautiful collection of short stories. Some are a little bit better than others. There was some that I found really profound on like a human level, but maybe I wasn't as engaged with as just like a fun movie, I guess. But then, you have things like the talking frog that has basically recruited this sort of middle management guy who's probably going to get fired. And the frog basically like fixes his problems in exchange to help him fight this worm creature from creating an earthquake in Tokyo. So, it's kind of wild. And then you just have like a story that's very simple of a guy meeting this girl, and the girl's kind of a weirdo, and that's kind of it. But they all kind of they somewhat thread together, which I think is interesting. And I really appreciate the fact that like I kind of love animated anthologies, and I love how each style is kind of unique and different and interesting. This is such a visually cool movie that I was a little bit disappointed we didn't get a Blu-ray release of this. I hope that this sells really well. I hope we get a Blu-ray. Hell, I hope we get a 4K release, but just correct me if I'm wrong, but this is DVD only, right? This is not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was very disappointed as well. I was looking forward to checking this out on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
So when they did announce one, I was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, I was like hoping I was wrong, but yeah. So unfortunately, I mean, it does look good, but you can tell the limitations with just 720p. So take that for what it's worth. We got an alternate French audio track, subtitles, of course, 5.1 surround sound, which sounds really good. I really like this. This is a fun time. I think, again, some of the segments are definitely better than others, so it feels a little like tonally awkward, but it's just a whimsical, interesting time. Again, I love how much it sort of pushes the medium of animation. It was a little uneven for me, but it was overall good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking that one out, even with it not being on Blu-ray. But I love animated films in all forms, be it for families or adults only, doesn't matter. So I'm excited about that. My next title is from Cleopatra Films. This is Shin Ultraman, which I was curious about. I reviewed a couple Ultraman titles over the years on Blu-ray, but I haven't seen anything as new as this one, and I was kind of interested to see what they would do with the character with this movie. It's pretty straightforward for anyone who's familiar with the character. This is a pretty self-contained tale of, at the beginning, it is a government agency Interestingly, one of the lead lead people of this is the lead in Drive My Car, the Best Picture nominee from a year ago, which I really loved. I was just like, what are you doing in this movie? This artsy Japanese movie into this kaiju movie. So this government is dealing with this kaiju problem. They keep getting these big monsters that are terrorizing different villages and stuff, and they're trying to figure out how they can contain them or take them down. And then all of a sudden, from the heavens, from space, Ultraman comes down, and for those Ultraman, this silvery humanoid dude who's extremely big and can fight along the fight these kaijus. He comes and whoops some butt, and then disappears, and then mysteriously they get a new member of the team that's acting a little bit odd and stuff, and spoiler alert, he's Ultraman. So it's kind of this story of this team trying to figure out what Ultraman's deal is, what he's here for, how he can help, and there's also some other space or other forces from space that are come to Earth that you're trying to figure out if they are here for good or here for bad and stuff. And ultimately, this is just an excuse for having several scenes of Ultraman fight these monsters and have pretty big action sequences. I want to stress, this is not they are not reinventing the action visuals or anything. This isn't a new Godzilla level how they upgraded to CGI, and it was all kinds of finessed great cinematography. There's CGI in this for sure, but these are very much kept to its kind of cheesy core. It's very kind of bright and cheesy fighting and effects and stuff. It's it gives you the feeling of the show, just taking a little bit more seriously at times. I do sometimes if I'm going for full cheese, I sometimes rather have the dudes in costumes of the past for some of the monsters, because while the CGI is not terrible, sometimes it can look a little rough, but it's supposed to, so I can kind of forgive it. It's good bad CGI. It has some entertaining fight sequences. The dialogue is kind of bad, but in a good way. Once again, it's cheesy. I think if you're an Ultraman fan, it'll give you what you want. If you want a legitimately good monster fighting action movie, it's not the best. It's just it's not to be taken super seriously, and if you engage with it on that level, I think you'll have a pretty good time. That being said, this Blu-ray release is a little bit disappointing in a couple of ways. The video quality is overall solid, not amazing. I did see a few shots that kind of looked a little bit wonky. Maybe it's because of special effects, but overall, for a new movie, it looks how it's pretty much supposed to look. The audio is where I have kind of more of an issue. One, I don't speak Japanese, probably not a surprise to people, but there is both a Japanese original language version and a English dub. Both of these are presented in Dolby Digital 5.1. I do not know why they didn't spring for a lossless track, a full DTS track, which is a little bit disappointing, especially for a more action-heavy film. You wanted to dig a little bit deeper. So that's disappointing, one. Two, I've had this happen with some Epic Pictures releases. The Japanese subtitles that are on here, or the English subtitles for the Japanese audio that are on here, are SDH subtitles. So you get all of the loud crash and door creaks and stuff, along with the actual words that you're supposed to be reading. So I wish there was once again a track that was just the English words without the descriptions. I think that's it's very distracting whenever you're watching. If you are a person who can hear, you probably don't always want to be watching the descriptions. I'm glad it is there for people who are hard of hearing or cannot hear. But I think that you should get both options. And so if you don't want to experience that, you have to watch the English dub without subtitles, which is never a good sign or option either, because you want to stick with the original audio. So no perfect solution here, which is a little bit frustrating, but if you're a fan, the audio visual, it does its job. I just wish it was better. There's not really a lot in the way of special features. There's a slideshow, and that's it. Trailers, basically nothing unless you count just a couple of images as special features. So not the best package, but the movie is cheesy fun if you like the character. But I wouldn't say it's like a safe blind buy. You need to know that you're kind of more in that, to that specific like takusatsu genre. I may be saying that wrong, but if you like that genre, you'll probably like it. If you're not, you should probably like test it out with a few episodes of something before you dive in.
Nice. Yeah, I know this was a big title when it came to Fantasia 2 years ago.
I think it might have been last summer.
Since like COVID, I don't know what time is even anymore, but
I'm right with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do like cheesy fun. It does suck that this maybe could be a better release, but I mean, it's good that we at least have it on home video. So I'm gonna, I hate to bring the vibe down a little bit, but I wasn't super feeling this documentary. It's called Closer to Vermeer, and I will say that this is for a very limited audience. Like, if you really, really, really love paintings, people like meticulously taking them out of their frames, examining them, scrutinizing them, like, you will absolutely love this. This film is made for you. I really I was interested because I love art. I'm an artist. I'm not like anywhere near like how Vermeer was, but like I get being excited by art and art history. I just think this documentary is very dry. I think a good documentary should not only just appeal to people that are interested in the subject, but I think it should also kind of get you interested and excited, even if you are not necessarily a big fan of art in this case. So I just found it like kind of a lecture, and I think that there are some interesting things. I can't recall the title of the painting, but they are able to use like some kind of infrared or something to like see this is like underneath the paint. This was something that he painted over, and it's I think it's interesting how we can kind of study these paintings and how they were made. I think one of the interesting things about this movie was how they restore these paintings, and they do it in such a delicate, meticulous way. Like, they don't want to absolutely like Instagram filter these pictures or these paintings. But like they want to have the integrity of it, but still restore it for future generations. So I don't know, it's interesting. I thought it was a little bland. It was a little dry for my taste, but if you really love these kind of this subject matter, I don't know, it has deleted scenes if you wanted more stuff. Yeah, it's okay. Mercifully, it's only 81 minutes. So
this is only tangentially related, but I can link this in the description. If you want a movie that's like kind of related to Vermeer, there's a movie that I reviewed on Blu-ray from a few years back called The Last Vermeer, which is decent. It's not great. I won't say it's great, but it's decent. It has Guy Pearce in it, and it's about art forgery, and like, so it's in that it deals with a Vermeer painting. It's fairly interesting, so I'll link that in the description if anyone's interested in checking it out instead of an actual documentary about Vermeer that's a little bit dry. So either way, it's not neither is going to be great, but it's an option. I just want to bring it up. Okay, so I mentioned the title earlier that got a lot of views for my other video that's a little bit spicy. Hopefully, maybe this one will drive the traffic for this video. For all you perverts out there, here is my newest from Raro Video. This is Honey, right, with the spicy title or cover from the beginning. So there you go, perverts. Enjoy it. Let's see. Do we have anything on the back that's spicy? No, you can just normal stills. And yes, a little bit more on the disc art, artfully covering her boobies. But so this movie it's interesting. It's kind of like, I would describe this as a sexual daydream. That's kind of how I'd describe it. It starts off in kind of a weird place where there's a woman who like goes to this man's house who's like, he seems to be pretty wealthy, and basically like takes him hostage and like forces him to read this script that I believe she has written. And he's like, she makes him read it out loud, and whenever he is like reading it, it becomes this story that we're following of this woman who like ends up at this hotel-ish kind of place where she's kind of naive, and once she gets there she realizes it is more akin to like a brothel. So she is kind of flitting from like room to room, and like there's like this secret room where this guy who's like he like never speaks, he's like this ripped dude who's just like doing like crazy like martial arts and exercises in this room, and you have to like climb this ladder to like peer into this room to watch him do it. And she becomes like obsessed with watching him, and then she finds herself like daydreaming about different like experiences like with this woman who hired her, who's like, I don't want to like comment on women's appearances, but she is like supremely endowed. It's insane. Like, but she's like they like make a lot of references to her chest and stuff, and she like has daydreams about her like after getting out of the bath, and then she like wanders around naked for a while and gets trapped under this bed where like this other woman and her customer like have sex above her, and it's just like a whole thing. Like, it's not as like erotic as a lot of titles that we've talked about. And even with what I've said, there is quite a bit of nudity, but it is not like a softcore film. It is more kind of like not in like its narrative like story beats necessarily, but it's kind of like a sexual sexy Alice in Wonderland, where she's just kind of like going from room to room, experiencing different things and like contending with her own sexuality and how she feels like her whether she's open to certain things and how she feels about certain things. And there's some other different dynamics within it. The resolution outside of the narrative with the woman holding the man hostage, it's interesting. I wasn't really expecting it. Overall, it's not like the most captivating movie. It's kind of like it takes its time, but it's interesting enough. If it sounds interesting to you at all, maybe check it out. But if you're like kind of on the fence, maybe rent it or find some other way to watch it first, because it is kind of more of like a mood piece rather than like a strict like this is what happens in the narrative. It's vibes. So and this isn't, I can't recommend this for its Blu-ray for like additional material because there's no special features, but this comes from a nice restoration from, I don't think it names like a restoration like specifically, but it's a nice transfer, and it has the original French audio, or no, Italian, my bad, slip of the tongue, Italian audio, and it's a good audio visual presentation, but there's not much more to it otherwise. So be sure you want to own this before you get into it, but if you are interested, it's a good release despite not having any new special features.
Nice. And to that point, I can check to see if That's like Kino. So I know they do like a you can rent some of their movies. So I'll link if that's the case, and you all can do a try before you buy, which is nice because you're still supporting Kino that way. But you describing it, it kind of sounds like, did you ever see that movie? And Criterion put it out, and I'm holding out for a 4K maybe someday, but Black Moon?
No, I do know what you're talking about, but no, I haven't seen it.
It is wild. It kind of, when you were describing it, especially when you were saying it's like a very Alice in Wonderland kind of thing, but maybe a little bit more sexy. That's the movie that sort of popped into my head, but
I'll add it to the list.
Yep. Add it to the list. So my final title, I wanted to end on a positive note, and also just that y'all don't think I hate documentaries. So this is only in theaters, and here's the front. We do have some nice features, extras. So let me ask you, when you think of Laemmle, what pops into your head? Like what kind of comes to mind?
It's a movie theater company. That's all I know. They're not in my area.
Okay, so you're right. But it was interesting because I'm like, okay, it is the theater chain, but I was like, I think of like Carl Laemmle, I think of like Universal. Carl Laemmle Jr. was somebody that like really, was instrumental in kicking off the classic Universal horror movies. So I kind of thought about that. And it's really interesting because this talks about the famous theater chain, its beginnings, how it's so tied into Los Angeles, not only just because the Laemmles were a part of the film business in some capacity for over 80 years, but also how this theater was instrumental in showing specifically foreign language films, and how it really got classic foreign films like the works of Bergman, Truffaut, and all these that we now think of as like legends. They were not as well regarded when they were first being shown. So it's interesting how they really cultivated this love for foreign films specifically. And then also, taking chances on maybe little art house films, something that's not going to get picked up by like the megaplexes. And it's interesting because you can see where the film initially was going to end, and then COVID happened. So then the filmmakers kind of pivoted a little bit in a way that feels, like tonally it feels right. But you can like tell where, okay, this is initially where it was going to end. And then, like, okay, so COVID happened. So it's another sort of obstacle for this family to overcome. And that's what this is. This is a family story about, these people that love cinema, have, almost come from a Hollywood dynasty. I mean, people love that you can go into a Laemmle theater and there's Laemmles walking around talking to patrons. It's really interesting. I don't want to give away like kind of like the fate of the theater. You just have to check it out. It's another one from Kino that you can possibly try before you buy, but only in theaters was really interesting. Very eye-opening. The interviews are really well done. I love that like the older Laemmles are documented, and like the one, oh my gosh, sweetest old lady, she was like over 100 and just sharp as a tack. And I mean, I'm not even 40 and I'm like, what is life anymore even? So hats off. But yeah, so yeah, I thought it was really well done. It didn't get too like pretentious or pompous. It has genuine heart to it, but without ever getting too sappy or sentimental. So yeah, only in theaters. Really good. And especially with it's interesting that they make comparisons to like the rise of television, to the rise of streaming. It all gives you a lot of really good food for thought. So I think it's worth checking out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I sounds very pleasant, and I love movie theaters, and I miss going to them, so I will definitely check that one out. My final title is from Kino Classics. This is the French film There's No Tomorrow, from Max Ophüls here, and I don't think it has double-sided artwork, but I'll check. So same artwork underneath the slipcover. Yep, no double-sided, but it does have disc art, so that's fun. So this film is depressing. So I was very frustrated by this film, but I know it's very good. But I was frustrated with the character a lot of the time because this woman, our lead character, she is a woman who, at the beginning of the film, she is performing at an adult nightclub, and so she's mostly just like doing some like strip dance numbers with some of her like fellow like ladies up there and stuff. But then there's like some implications that there's some other finessing and like using of her feminine wiles and stuff as the club owner asked her to do and stuff. So she's making her way throughout the world. She has a young son, and that's pretty much what we know about her. But when she reconnects with this an old flame from the past, and in the course of this, she kind of lies about what she's doing in her life, and like says that she's like has like a different line of work, and she's like doing really well. She has like lives in this nice apartment and stuff. And then once she thinks that this is gonna like go away because like this guy, he's just like in town for a little bit, but this lie starts to snowball where she has to kind of like get herself in a position where she can like fake this lifestyle. So she's like trying to like at first like borrow money from like her employer, and then he can't do it, and then she goes to like a more shady individual to like get money to rent this apartment that she says she owns. And it's just kind of a lie that builds, and you just see her like, yes, she doesn't want to like reveal like her actual line of work, and she doesn't want to be known as like someone who's like fallen on hard times and stuff. So like she has pride, but she starts to get herself in such a bad situation that it just like drove me mad. I'm like, it doesn't matter what this guy thinks, but it matters to her, of course. But the drama, it's well acted. It's a very emotional ride. Like I really feel for this woman and her son, and then there's revelations as to like how she got to where she was, and like what happened in the years since she last spoke to this dude, that it does break your heart a little bit. But I couldn't quite get into the love it territory just because I was just like so frustrated. But I fully understand that this is a well-made movie. It's a very good movie. It's just like, me personally, I had kind of small issues with the narrative just because I was just like, why? But sometimes you just do that with like, you just watch a movie and you're just like, why is this character doing this? You are ruining your life. What are you doing? That's just what happened here. And also, since we've been talking about spicy titles, I didn't expect this to be a spicy title, but there's some like old school like 1930s nudity in here. So if you're interested in that, there you go. So that's some bonus for you perverts. I'm just gonna alienate our entire audience just by like calling them names. But no, I love you guys. I understand, guys and gals. But so this film, it comes from a restoration from I believe, conducted by Gaumont over in France. And this comes with an audio commentary from film historian Adrian Martin, and who I believe did like a biography on Max Ophüls, because he's like he talks a lot about his career during the commentary track. This has the original French audio. Sounds good. The video is very solid. Not They've cleaned up a lot of the damage, and like I didn't spot much in the way of nicks and scratches at all. Other than the audio commentary, there's not really anything else in the way of special features, but I love a good audio commentary, so I'm glad. So overall, Kino Classics did a good job with this one. I think I do recommend it, even if it does frustrate me some. So There's No Tomorrow. It's good if you're into old school French cinema.
Yeah. Also, does it ever, like, when you watch an old movie, do you ever like think every single person in this is dead? Like, that's kind of wild to think about.
Especially when I'm watching like the silent films from like 1918 or something. I'm like, you're all gone. You're
just
gone.
long dead. I mean, even if you were like a baby, you're still like, that's wild. Anyways, on that
Way
note,
to get morbid in the last few seconds of this.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, so that is our show. We always really appreciate when y'all give us likes, comments, all that great stuff. It's nice to see that like more of y'all are coming back each week. So you want to subscribe. We do this every week. Geek Vibes put out a lot of great content daily. And just, thanks for hanging out with us.